I feel like a lot of people are leaving the church because they're finding out some stuff about the church that they didn't know before, like even polygamy and the racism thing. I grew up knowing that the church had polygamy. That was very known in my family, and we talked about it all the time. We also talked about the racism because my mom was always telling us about how racist the church used to be and how racist it still is and its doctrine. And I don't know, I just grew up knowing all that stuff already. And I don't know how true it is, but there's also something going around that my family just knows, and I don't know if it's a rumor or truth, but the church became okay in its stance on Coca-Cola when they bought stock in the company. And so it used to be like the coffee thing was no caffeine. This is just how it is with my family. It used to be more no caffeine, but then they bought stock in Coke, and now soft drinks are okay. So I just kind of knew about all these scandals. It was just kind of, I don't know, just how the church was. But I still grew up in the church, kind of, like around the church. All my friends were Mormon. They'd invite me to things like girls' camp and church sometimes. If we had a sleepover or something, we'd go to church the next day, and it was nice. I forgot. My friend reminded me that when I was 12, I wanted to join the church after going to girls' camp. I just felt really good at church, and I will say that feels an awful lot like what the Spirit is supposed to feel like. And so when I became an adult and, you know, knowing all these things about the church, knowing how, I mean, it's just logically not the best. Well, I got involved in the Jesus stuff in jail, and I really enjoyed going to the Bible classes and stuff in prison, and I was just out of prison. I had a new baby. I mean, I've been out for a while, but I was really missing the Bible stuff, just talking about the Bible. And the sister missionaries knocked on my door, and I was just interested in arguing pretty much. And so we started talking about the Book of Mormon and Bible, and, you know, I had some concerns that the Book of Mormon doesn't have the same tone as the Bible. It doesn't have the same kind of, like, feel. I don't know. It seemed a little problematic to me. I didn't like the chapter headings and all that stuff. And then, of course, the hypocrisy I see in the members in the church, hypocrisy in every person on earth, but specifically the members of the church, and hypocrisy and stuff that seems so easy to strive for. If you've known your entire life to love your enemy, like, it seems like you'd be a little farther along than not at all along at all. It seems like it would be very, very obvious that, like, an obvious enemy, like somebody we're at war with in the country, would be somebody that we would try to love, just because that would be a really obvious hypocrisy. It would just seem like, even if you're just trying to be seen of men, you would just have to love the people we're at war with, just to keep it up, to keep face, to save face, to keep up the show, you know, because it's such an obvious one, love your enemy, and then we were very obviously not loving our enemies. I know, like, pretty much every single member of the church I knew was like, yes, we need to go to war because we need to defend ourselves. And it's like, no, we're not really on the defense here, though. And you know, it was just so obvious to me. So anyway, I was not interested in the church, ! But I was interested in a Bible discussion and a Jesus discussion. Mostly, I just wanted to argue. But the sisters were so nice, and they were not very well versed in scripture, so I felt bad arguing with them. Anyway, they were somewhat educated in scripture, and they pointed a lot of scripture out, and I did like a lot of things the Book of Mormon said, even if it didn't have the same kind of feel as the Bible. But I just knew that it couldn't be true just based on how it was like. It seemed contrived. And I already knew about the Joseph Smith and the hat situation. I already knew about all of that. I knew, like, it was just, like, embarrassing, kind of. And so they were so nice, and they invited me to pray. Of course they did. They just said, we're going to challenge you to pray about it. Yeah, you don't know if it's true or not. Why don't you just pray about it? Like, God's going to answer you. Don't you believe that? That's in the Bible. And it was like, well, yeah, I do believe that. I mean, the Joseph Smith story is believable on a somewhat just level where he just prayed and asked God and God revealed something. Like, that seems believable. And what makes it somewhat more believable to me too is that his mom believed him, because as a mom, you kind of know the character of your kids, and some kids are more believable than others, I guess. I don't know. And if you have you wouldn't just believe your kid and the religion they've decided to. I don't know, if your kid came to you and was like, hey, I made up a religion, do you want to follow it? I don't know many moms that would be like, yes, sign me up, but they all did, so maybe there's something to it. But anyway, so I had that running around in my head a little bit, and I did pray about it, and I felt just this intense peace come over me. It was weird, because I felt it before. I've had that peaceful feeling of but just when they're like, it's the Spirit. And the Spirit is a feeling of peace. It's a still small voice, all the descriptions. And I just felt intense peace. As soon as I sprang about the dumb Book of Mormon, I felt intense peace. And when I say dumb Book of Mormon, I mean it. I thought it was super dumb. I used to say, as a saying, you say Mormon, I say moron. Like, you say potato, I say potato kind of thing. But the Mormons just seem so dumb to me, just so, ugh. So anyway, I prayed about it, and I dumbly felt peace, and I was just like, no, that is not true. It can't be true. It objectively cannot be true. So I just didn't want it to be true, and I just kept, like, facing that feeling of peace and being like, well, what is that then? That's super weird. I still get a feeling of peace when I think about it. Even though I know it's like, I know about City Creek. I know about all this stuff. I know about the stipends they get. It's like, I don't like any of that stuff. I know I worked for Beehive Clothing, and they were doing some stuff like just employing widows and single mothers and paying them like not well for really intense labor, and making us feel bad because the women in another country were doing even harder, more intense labor to make their wages and getting less money. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, so you're running a sweatshop? Like, how is this Christ-like? What is happening here? What is this? We're all single mothers and widows primarily who are working here. This is intense. Like, what is going on? And this is the church, though. It just didn't. The business side of the church is just not making a lot of sense to me. So, like, logically, the church should not have a peaceful feel, but it somehow does. I go to church and I get a feeling of peace. It's just, I don't know any other way to describe it. It has to be the still small voice. And I love the Jesus stuff. I mean, there's got to be a reason. And so I'm just seeing, and I do love the church. I love going to church. I love fellowshipping. I like talking, obviously. I like talking about God, so it's just a really great place. I've been to a lot of other churches. I really like other churches. I get a feeling of excitement, like when you get a really good preacher, especially hard Baptist preaching. Oh man, that stuff just rocks you to the bones. It just hits you right to the core. You feel, I don't know, I heard a pastor say once, Baptist preacher, he said he never felt as much love as he did hearing hard preaching from the pulpit, someone just preaching fire and brimstone. It's like, yeah, I get that. So good. So good. Just this is like the raw Bible. We're not going to apologize for the things that are not PC. We're just going to live the Bible in a real way. So I love that hard preaching. I feel like a fire. It feels like we're on fire, just listening to it and thinking about it, talking about it. Just feels so good. I love that. But it's different in the church. When I go to the Mormon church, though, it just has this feeling of peace. It's like, oh, it's just peace. And like, I had to meet that head on when I prayed about it, like the missionary said to do, and I felt that peace, and I recognized that as a still small voice. I realized I had to meet that head on. I had to face that. I had to face what that means. And if that means that the church is true in objective reality, then that means the church is true, no matter how dumb I feel, no matter how much I have to go idiotically tell my family that, hey, guess what? I'm gonna be a Mormon. I'm gonna join the Mormons. Surprise. And it was just, I felt so dumb. Like, it was just, really? The Mormons? That's what you're doing with life now? And I just went full in. I was still feeling a peace. I'm like, well, if it's true, it's true. I'm not going to hide away from the truth, even if it's inconvenient. If it's true, it's true. Like, I feel the still small voice. I feel the feeling of peace they said I would feel. Like, I can't deny that. It's just, it's always there. It's there now. They just don't, there's a feeling of peace. Like, if I'm going with a pure heart, but that's the thing too. If I go with skepticism and anger, like, I don't think I feel that. But when I go just actually just questioning, just wondering, I get that feeling of peace. And if I go with that pure heart of questioning, wondering, and other things, it's just different. It's just, and I don't know, maybe I'm just making myself feel that. I don't think I am, though, because I logically and objectively, like, don't think I would. Why would I? The church has a lot of weird stuff. But, so I just met that head on. Just was like, well, I might as well get baptized. I have to. I'm compelled to, because I'm feeling the still small voice, and that's what they said it would be, and that's just what God wants me to do. Like, why would God give me a feeling of peace if it's not something that I should do? And so, of course, I did it, and then I just jumped in headlong. I never do anything halfway. It's like 100% Orthodox LDS. I'm 100%, following all the rules. And I loved it. And I loved following the rules. It gave me just such a feeling of, like, doing the right thing and just going along. And I will say it was a lot of work. It was intense. Just always feeling like, I don't know, that I really wasn't good enough, because I couldn't ever quite do visiting teaching the way I was supposed to. It was always just kind of like difficult, and I was busy, and I cared about my sisters, but I just didn't really have time to do that. Plus my calling, plus trying to go to the temple regularly. I was just kind of failing in that. I just thought everybody else was succeeding. Plus, the genealogy thing was hard, because I got a bit done, but it was like so few and far between, and I was raising my kid. I was a single mom. I was trying to just do it all, and I kind of was, but kind of not, like, kind of failing in every way slightly, but doing a lot of stuff, but not doing everything to the high standard that I wanted. I don't know. So it was just too much on my plate, basically. But I did feel kind of bad, as I had so much going on, and now thinking, like, is all that contrived? Is the church doing this on purpose, keeping everybody super busy? Because that is kind of a tactic, and that's kind of sad, and that's kind of shocking if that is true. If that's true, like, the church is acting quite wicked, and I feel like they are doing a lot of things that could be quite wicked, depending on their level of knowledge, depending on their intention. And that's just between them and God. It's like, God looks on the heart. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. I'm not there to judge. It's not mine to judge. It's not mine to judge at all. I don't know. I'm just going to love everyone. Unto us it's commanded to love everyone. And unto God will be given the judgment, something like that. God is the judge. He looks on the heart. Men just look on the outward appearance. Men and women, people just look on the outward. Like, to me, on the outward appearance, the church looks pretty, I don't know, problematic in a lot of ways. But the polygamy thing doesn't seem problematic to me. I understand that. I think that it's a pretty good principle to think, like, you have to get rid of jealousy to understand how to be Christ-like. I think that's actually true. And then that's what polygamy teaches. That's the whole point of polygamy. It's not just so men can have lots of wives. Maybe it is for some men and it is for a lot, but I think that for the majority of polygamous marriages, it's actually really hard. and it's a lot of emotional navigation. It's a difficult thing. It's a difficult undertaking. It's not something people just take lightly and just like, oh yay, more people to be with. I don't think that it's like that in real life, because it's now you've got a lot of emotions going on in the same house. You just gotta manage all that. I don't know. Anyway, that's the point of polygamy, is to work on yourselves. And so that's why it's considered like the principle, and like it's gonna exalt you, because you, by your actions, you will gain so much from doing it. And I think that's why they say you cannot get into the highest level kingdom without doing that, without putting in the work of understanding how to love fully without jealousy, to be like, I don't know, fully Christ-like, something like that. You know, I can get behind that. That can make sense to me. That makes a bit of sense. Not that I fully support it or anything. I don't know my position on it. I support it, though. If people want to do it and choose it, that's their choice. As consenting adults, right? Because we as a society have decided that 18 is about the age, like, you kind of have to learn about society a little bit before you can really give informed consent. When society is a little, I mean, we've got a lot going on. And so a girl growing up in polygamous Utah, I mean, it seems a little bit coercive, maybe. I guess there could be a case for that. It seems, I don't know. But who cares if it's two adults and when they want to do that? I don't know. Where do you draw the line, people? Anyway, but the polygamy thing in the church, when I joined the church, I already knew about polygamy, and so I already knew about that stuff too. I just knew that it was like somewhat okay, and it was okay with me. Yeah, I knew about the racism too, because my family was that family that left the church when they gave black people the priesthood. My family said, oh, this church is flip-flopping. They didn't like that. It wasn't, I mean, my family is racist, but I don't know, not in like an extreme way, but yes, racist, definitely. As I'm pretty sure most people were in the 60s, like, and before that, my grandparents' generation, I think most people were racist. I don't know if my mom's side was, though, because they were super Democrat, but I don't know if everyone just was. I don't know. Anyway, my family was racist. The church had a really clear stance on this. It was the mark of Cain, the curse kind of stuff, and it was like, for them, it was like our proclamation to the family. You know how we're struggling with that, of like, oh my gosh, if, you know, this LGBTQ issue is like now here in the face of the church, is the church going to flip-flop on that? And my aunt, my great aunt, who was close to death, she's in her 90s, she told me before she died that we were talking about that, and I was like, no way, for sure, like there's the proclamation on the family, the church isn't going to switch its stance on that. And she's like, you'll see, the church switches its stance on anything that's when it's socially convenient. And that's why they left the church, is because the church flipped its stance, like in a really dramatic core belief kind of way. And it was like, ugh. And they learned to be less racist over time, my family, just like everybody did. But at the time that it happened, it was like a core belief kind of flip. It was a feeling of like our core, like God has changed. God is no longer the same yesterday, today, and forever. Like something about God's character has changed. And so that's, you know, that was problematic for my family. And so we grew up as like apostates, Jack Mormons. We grew up not in the church, and we grew up knowing about these things and knowing about it flip-flopped on polygamy too, you know, and there's like all that stuff. but why the feeling of peace? So there I am, here in the midst of my family. Like, me and one or two other members on either side are now the Mormon ones. Like, we don't go out to eat on Sunday and all this stuff, and that was causing huge problems and huge upsets and things. But me being Orthodox, I just said no, like, well, that's not just not what I do anymore, and we just kind of made it work. But I still love the church, and I feel like I get a lot of that excitement. I get the heart preaching, just going to church and like participating in Sunday school. It's so exciting to talk about God and talk about it in a setting where people are interested in knowing, and with people who are interested in going deeper and really trying to understand and be vulnerable and stuff like that. Like, I really love that. I also think Joseph Smith had a real experience. I also think that the Bible is a group of people's lived experience of their interactions with God, their interactions with the divine, and what they call the divine, what they call God, and how they have come to understand the character of God and what God means, the definition of God. I think they've really stumbled upon something there's something, they've really stumbled upon some kind of understanding of the world that makes a lot of sense. And they had some kind of interaction with something. And the Joseph Smith, he had some kind of interaction with something. And I think it was a real lived experience. And the fact that there's multiple first visions almost lends credibility to it. Because if you witness something like seeing God, for example, I don't think it would be as straightforward as the movie showed, where it's just like, he's praying and then he's seized upon by an unseen force, and then there's some like heavenly feet with some heavenly white robes. I think that the experience of witnessing what we call God might be a little bit weirder than that. It might be an extreme situation where maybe you wouldn't know how to describe it. It would be such a bizarre experience. You would be able to use metaphor and description. And I haven't heard all the visions. Actually, I haven't even seen all the versions of the first vision. I'd like to, just because I'm interested to hear like how they relate to each other. Maybe all the descriptions together make like a picture, of God's nature.